Trump has 7 confirmed as of today. Hopefully we'll get another one late tonight. And at this point, in Barack Obama's first term, he had 22 done. The Democrats are just blocking, doing everything they can to slow it down. I mean, it's frustrating. Trump won. He won big. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. They all let him put his team together. And if he doesn't do a good job, there's election in 2 years or election in 4 years.
All eyes are on the U.S. Senate this week, and they will be next week and probably the week after that. For all the confirmation hearings, it's like a soap opera or maybe like an episode of the OC or Outer Banks. Everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen next, whether or not these folks will be confirmed or not. When President Trump started making his nominations, there was a lot of buzz, positive and negative, about the nominations, depending on who you asked. It looked like people were going to push back hard against a bunch of them. Obviously, the Matt Gaetz nomination didn't last more than 48 hours, but the rest of them have held. Pete Hegseth held off. It sounded like there was a lot of pressure. There was noise from the White House, or supposedly from the White House, about Governor Ron DeSantis being Secretary of Defense if Hegseth wouldn't get confirmed. But Hegseth was strong. He really pushed through the process. When you saw him in his confirmation hearings, he really brought some confidence, I think, to me and to the American people in the way he responded to the questions. It was really a substantive hearing. And for those of us who follow government closely, it was really a breath of fresh air to watch him answer questions and actually respond in a direct way, not just these misdirection responses that we've been hearing for so many years from different nominees in their confirmation hearings. He was really groundbreaking in that regard. And I say groundbreaking because if you watch the hearings of the nominees after him, it seems like all of them have really taken his lead. People are answering questions. They're answering tough questions. They're prepared. They're professional. I do have a bias. I support President Trump and the Republican Party. But really, I had my questions about some of these guys and girls. But you watch them sitting there on the hot seat at the table in the U.S. Senate building, in the Capitol, and they are answering these questions in ways that really inspire confidence. And you start seeing a theme that President Trump not only is looking to disrupt these agencies, but he's looking to really make changes, not just more of the same. And these guys are looking to do that. And really, the question is going to be if they're going to be able to do that. But we're watching these hearings unfold. We're watching RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, et cetera. But I think this is something that's important to watch. We're seeing government really working. We know members of the House and the Republican Party have been in Florida in their conference, getting ready for the year, getting their agenda ready to go for this Congress. President Trump laid out his vision. On day one, he passed about 200 plus executive orders. Some of them are being stopped, but he's laying out his vision. Here's how I want to govern, but you can't govern from the Oval Office. We have 3 co-equal branches of government, and we need the legislature to work. And like we spoke about last week, the reason we're back speaking to another U.S. Senator this week is because this is where the focus needs to be. Can the legislature, can the Senate, can the House really deliver? And they need to deliver quickly if there's going to be results in the midterm elections. It seems like, why are we talking about elections again? But it's in 2 years, and that election cycle starts now. It started a week ago or so. We need to start delivering. They need to start delivering, or they'll just start giving up ground to the Democrats all over the country. The next point is about the media. U.S. Congressman Carlos Jimenez a few weeks ago after the election said here that the biggest loser in the election was the media, because the American people said decisively that they're not buying what the media is selling. But the question thereafter is whether the Democrats and the media, were they going to change their tune, or is there going to be a big shift in American culture when it comes to media and to politics? And the answer so far is a resounding no. It's more of the same from the media. It's more of the same from the Democrats. We'll speak about that a little today. They voted against the ICC sanctions, International Criminal Court. It's a kangaroo court that the U.S. is not a member of, Israel is not a member of, and they issued arrest warrants against the Prime Minister of Israel and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Baseless arrest warrants, if you read it, literally based on nothingness. And this is something that's dangerous, not just for Israel, but for America. Last time the ICC went down this path against the United States, Trump issued an executive order sanctioning them. Now we're waiting for the legislature to do the same thing. The Republicans put forward a bill for a vote. Democrats rejected it. The media covers up for the Democrats again here over and over again. But listen, this isn't about partisanship. This is about honesty. It's about getting things done. The Republicans and Democrats can have different philosophies and should have different philosophies. That's politics on how to move the country forward. But all we should all be demanding on this side, outside of government, we should all be demanding transparency. Tell us where you are, tell us what's happening, and let us, the voters, decide. And I think that's really the lesson from this last election. So with us today is Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. He was just reelected for a second term. Previously, he served as our governor. He came from the healthcare space as CEO of HCA, which was also known as Columbia HCA Healthcare, for 10 years before going into public office. I've known Senator Rick Scott since he was our governor, interacted with him when I was mayor a lot, spent time with him on the Champlain Towers disaster site, where when that building collapsed, by the way, the building I grew up in as a child, someone I've been following and working with in one way or another for a long time, just really watching his work more accurately for many, many years. And I asked him to come on to give us a little bit of a glimpse of what's happening in the nomination process. He put forward a bill related to immigration. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about Luigi Mangioni and the murder of Brian Thompson from his perspective as a former healthcare CEO. This is Standpoint, and I'm Gabe Groisman. Thank you, Senator Rick Scott, for joining me today.
Gabe, it's always great to be with you.
Yeah, great to see you. I saw you a few weeks ago at the inauguration. The
Yeah.
inauguration, though, is now over. The parties are done, although there were some great parties, and all attention is actually on the Senate and the confirmation process. People seem restless watching these soap operas unfold for the confirmations, but I think when you compare it to previous years, it's actually going at a nice pace. How do you think Senator Thune, the majority leader, is dealing with the process so far?
Well, I think John Thune is doing his best to try to get this done as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the Democrats they're obstructionists. At this point, Trump has 7 confirmed as of today. Hopefully, we'll get another one late tonight. And at this point, in Barack Obama's first term, he had 22 done. So, I mean, the Democrats are just blocking, doing everything they can to slow it down. I mean, it's frustrating. Trump won. He won big. He won the popular vote. He won electoral vote. They all let him put his team together. And if he doesn't do a good job, there's an election there's election in 2 years or election in 4 years.
Yeah, look, as a Republican, I'm excited to see and anxious to see the legislature step up and start passing laws that support those initiatives. We'll get to Kate's law later, which you proposed just this week. You put forward this week with Senator Cruz. The Pete Hegseth nomination actually jumped out at me. I mean, seeing it go down to a tiebreak, what were your thoughts on that, losing 3 Republican senators on that vote?
Well, Pete's going to do a great job, and here's why I support him. He is a warfighter. Here's a guy that intentionally joined the service to go to battle. He knew when he joined he'd probably have to go to war. He went to war. He led troops. He led troops safely. He knows people that have lost their lives. He knows people that have been injured. He knows what's like to be a warfighter. And I think that's what we ought to have that are running our defense. People that know the risk of sending troops in harm's way, know the importance of making sure warfighters have all the training and have all the equipment they need, that they're safe. So I think he's going to do a great job. I wish everybody had voted for him. They didn't. We had to bring in J.D. Vance for a tiebreaker, but he is now the Secretary of Defense, and he's going to do a great job.
Yeah, I mean, everyone keeps talking about the 4-star generals that have had that position, but they've one after the other have just caused so many problems from that position. So it's good to try something new. I think people are really excited. The public, at least, is excited to see him in that role. When it comes to Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence, you really went to bat. You wrote a really detailed op-ed in the Washington Examiner about it. I'm just going to quote one line from it where you say, Gabbard believes that we must restore trust in our government, stop spying on our own citizens like the Biden administration did, and use the intelligence community to make America great again by keeping America safe. What are your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, here's somebody that has served our country. I mean, she's a veteran. She's somebody that cares about this country, and I think she's going to do a great job. Here's what's frustrating for me. There's so many parts of the federal government, pretty much all of them, I think, have the American public has lost trust. During my reelection efforts last year, I asked people, I said, do you trust that the federal government, that let's say the director of the Secret Service is going to tell us what happened at Butler? Nobody raised their hand. How about Mayorkas at the Homeland Security? Nobody raised their hand. How about Christopher Wray at FBI? Nobody raised their hand. What Tulsi will bring to the table, along with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Marco Rubio, is transparency, right, and accountability. That's what the American public want. They want somebody that's going to give us the facts. We can trust their facts. And if somebody does the wrong thing, they're going to be held accountable. So that's what I like about Tulsi Gabbard. That's exactly what she believes.
Is that what you think the Democrats are so afraid of with her, that she would tell the truth and she's not bending at the knee and has not bended at the knee for the Democratic establishment in the past?
That's my impression. It's fascinating. She was a Democrat, right? Like RFK. I mean, you would think that the Democrats would vote for people that had been a Democrat. If Joe Biden had nominated these individuals, every Democrat would have voted for them.
Right.
So it just doesn't make any sense to me. This is just so much of this is just their voting party line. Like today, we just came out of committee for Russ Vought, who has been confirmed before and was the head of Office of Management Budget before, and not one Democrat. Well, first off, today they didn't even come to the committee. They didn't even show up to the committee to vote. So actually, it was unanimous out of the committee, but only Republicans voted.
But with Gabbard, what's interesting is it kind of there's all these rumors that have been around about Gabbard since 2019, 2020. Like when she ran for president in the Democratic primary, they call it the RussiaGate scandal, whether Hillary Clinton started putting out things saying that she was being controlled by Russia, et cetera, those sort of things. And those questions still swirl. She's obviously denied them. If I'm not mistaken, there was a lawsuit related to that several years ago. But the media continues to push that narrative, sort of the Democrats. From where I sit, it kind of just highlights the worst in America and American establishment, where you can just sort of push something when there's no substance there. But how do you think that has played into the whole RussiaGate scandal has played into her nomination process?
Well, what the Democrats are going to do, they're going to lie. They're going to try to delay. They're going to, try to do everything they can to stop Donald Trump's nominees. I mean, I don't get it. Trump won. The Democrats are going to have to get over it. Let him put his team together. Let him do his best, and then hold him accountable. I mean, there's election in 2 years. If Republicans don't do, if we don't do our jobs, then we won't win re-election in 2 years. If Republicans don't do our job, then we won't win the next Republican, the next presidency. So, but let us do what we said we were going to do in our campaign accounts, our campaigns, and then let's see if the American public like it. I think they're going to like what we're doing. They want lower taxes. They want accountable government. They want transparency. They want a federal government they can be proud of. So if we don't perform, then don't elect us. I think we're going to perform.
Yeah, what's interesting about the Gabbard nomination or the confirmation hearings is that she answers questions, and she's actually having conversations with members of the Senate, with the senators who are asking her, as opposed to just deflecting. We've been so used to hearing elected officials and appointees just deflect on every answer, but she's answering. And the other one who really just is answering all the questions that are put in front of him is RFK Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. You are the chairman of the Special Committee on Aging. You, quote, gave your full endorsement on the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again caucus there. What do you make of, you're also a healthcare executive. So what do you make of this whole MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again movement, focusing on Americans just getting healthy as opposed to just focusing on taking more and more drugs and vaccines and such?
I'm excited about RFK because he's going to bring a fresh perspective. The best thing we can do is if we can make everybody healthy where they don't need more drugs. They don't need more hospital visits. They don't need no more physician visits. So that'd be the best thing we can do. And he will hold the food industry accountable for making sure the food that we put into our body is safe. He's going to hold everybody involved safe. He's going to give us information. So with regard to take vaccines as an example. So he is pro-vaccine, but he's like I am. Let's get the facts to the American public so they make their own decision. You should not be forced to put something in your body. You should be given them good information, and you'll make that decision for your health. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to hold the healthcare agencies accountable, and I think he's going to do a great job.
Yeah, what's interesting on the vaccines, I think the nuance he's trying to say, which I think you're expressing, is he's not anti-vaccine, he's anti-vaccine mandates. I'm pretty sure that was really the thrust of his argument that he was making in front of the Senate. Before COVID, people that were anti-vaccine mandates were really looked at as conspiracy theorists. Every school has a couple of those parents that were refusing to vaccinate their kids, and all of us, everybody, would be fighting against them. You got to vaccinate them to send them to school. I feel. Do you feel that the COVID vaccine and how that was shoved down everyone's throats is really just changing the narrative and the way Americans are thinking about vaccines?
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, the federal government lost trust because what they put out. Remember, I think in the beginning they said if you take the vaccine, you'll never get COVID. Well, I saw a study by what the Cleveland Clinic saying the more vaccines you take, COVID vaccines you take, the greater chance you are of getting COVID. So we've changed now. We're going to, as Americans, we're going to require more information. We don't appreciate being told what to do. I always tell everybody, I love my mom. She's a wonderful person. I hated being told what to do. I think that's how most Americans are. Give us good information. We can make our own decisions.
What do you think the left is so afraid of with RFK? Because I think out of all the nominees, that's the one that's really brought them. The loudest opposition has been to RFK from the beginning. Again, an interesting dynamic since he's been a lifelong Democrat.
I think what they don't like is the fact that he's a breath of fresh air. He's a great communicator. He is not he's not enamored with big government. He's enamored with good information. So, and unfortunately for the Democrats, a lot of them don't want you to know. They want to make the decisions for you. I don't get it. I don't want to tell people how to lead their lives. I didn't appreciate it growing up. I should have appreciated my mom more than I did, but I didn't really like being told what to do. And I think that's how all of us are. You're a smart guy. Most Americans are very comfortable in making their own decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's a lot of fear in the communities though with RFK, mostly unfounded because he hasn't said anything on it. But of what NIH is going to do with regards to research, with rare disease research, etc., that the NIH funds so much of that. What do you know about that topic?
Well, I think what he brings to the table is there's going to be transparency and accountability. So with regard to NIH, what do we spend our money on? Is this, are we sending it to China? Are we doing it? Is it for Americans? Are we going to control? Are we going to control the value that we create through NIH spending? Are we going to be transparent and give you good information so you can make a good decision? I actually think we're going to be healthier if we give Americans good information. If we tell them, this is what's good for you, this is what's bad for you, but you get to decide if you whether you want it or not. I know that Chinese garlic's bad for you, right? My goal is to get you good information. If you want to buy it, okay, even though it's made in sewer water and human feces, that's your choice. But if you don't know, right, government should mandate knowledge, information.
Yeah, by the way, I've seen you do that video about the Chinese garlic, and I had to run and double check. And I've known you for a long time. I know if you're saying it, I can count on it. But I did look it up, and it's unbelievable. The Chinese garlic, or it seems crazy. I urge people to go look it up, and it's kind of shocking when you see it. From the medical research community, though, here in the United States, what do you think they can expect from RFK if he's nominated?
They should be excited. I think what people should be excited about now is if you do your job and you believe in accountability, this is your opportunity. I mean, we're going to take politics out of making decisions and we're going to go to science. We're going to go to accountability. We're going to transparency. So I think the medical research, should be excited because we're not going to waste our time on foolish research. We're going to focus on the things that are most important to Americans. And I think that's what RFK will also bring to the table.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I made that argument to some folks in the rare disease community just last week, so I'm happy to hear you confirm my suspicions on that. What's your take? In the Senate, you sort of avoided it a little bit before, but we have Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Susan Collins, even Mitch McConnell. You know, being almost the contrarians in the party. It's like they haven't bought into to this new movement and to the mandate that Trump won in the election.
Well, the way the Constitution is set up, I think we all represent our state. I can tell you what's happened since I ran against McConnell 2 years ago, and then I ran to be the leader in November. Is now we're starting to have real conversations. In the Senate, when we're up here, Senate Republicans come together to have lunch. Not all of us show up; maybe 35 or so will show up each lunch. But we're actually now starting to have real conversations. When I came up here 6 years ago, if you ask McConnell a question, that was an affront to McConnell. So that's completely changed. We're having We're having real conversations. I got elected to be the chairman of the the conservative Republicans in the Senate, and so the lunch I host on Wednesdays. Last week we had Stephen Miller come in and we talked about what is the Trump administration doing to secure the border, and so we had a robust conversation about that. Yesterday at lunch, we had a real conversation about how we're going to pick judges, how we're going to pick U.S. attorneys, how we're going to pick U.S. marshals. So what my goal is to create a real conversation because I believe we can bring people together, and that's not what was happening. So I expect people represent your state. And I tell people, other than Marco Rubio and now Ashley Moody, nobody else up here could vote for me when I ran for election. So don't tell me how to vote. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Represent your state. And so, what anybody that you should vote the way you believe it's in the best interest of your state.
That's fair. Let's talk a little bit about Kate's Law, which you introduced with Senator Cruz to increase penalties for illegal immigrants who repeatedly re-enter the country after being deported. Tell me a little bit about that bill.
Well, number one, it's illegal. Texas, Florida, a lot of our states, we are immigration states. We have, people have come from all over the world to live in our states. Take Florida as an example. We got a lot of people from Latin America. We want you to come, but we want you to come in a legal manner and you have to be vetted. If you don't do that and you come illegally, you should be penalized in your ability to come back, right? If you're a repeat offender, first off, you shouldn't do it the first time. But this is if you're a repeat offender, it's going to make it even harder for you to get back to ever come in here legally. It's common sense, right?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it seems like such a common sense bill that how can anybody oppose it? How do you expect the other side of the aisle to receive this bill?
Oh, they're going to block it. So it takes 60 votes in the Senate to pass. They'll block it. I mean, we had a vote this week on the saying how the ICC sanctioned indicted Netanyahu, and so we had a bill that would put sanctions on anybody that supported what the ICC is doing against Israel, and not one Democrat voted for it. And they sometimes they talk a good game, like every so often Fetterman will talk like he cares about Israel, but he never votes like that he cares about Israel. I mean, he always votes. He's a Democrat, so they Democrats unfortunately don't support Israel. They won't fight anti-Semitism. So but we've got to keep fighting, and maybe someday they'll figure out that either they need to change because your populace wants it, or they've lost so many elections that we have more Republicans that we will need a Democrat vote.
Yeah, what do you make? And this is almost a point that's talked about too much, but it's hard not to bring it up of the mainstream media and the way they support the Democratic Party. Because if you look at this as an example, this is the ICC vote, International Criminal Court. Israel's not a party to them. Neither is the United States. Just a few years ago, they were started an investigation to try to prosecute American troops for actions in Afghanistan. President Trump issued an executive order sanctioning the prosecutor and anyone who's involved in the investigation. Almost the same thing now that the Senate voted on. Now they're going after the U.S.'s ally, Israel, for it. It's a clear and clean bill. I pulled it myself. It's pretty simple. But the Senate's line was it wasn't a well-crafted bill. And that CNN ran with that, ABC, NBC, everybody ran with that, sort of to give them cover for not voting for it. And all you have to do is click on the link in the articles and read the bill. It's pretty clear. Why has the media not learned their lesson from this last election, where the American people really rejected their false narratives?
So many of the media are lefties, and they just have they're not information now. It's all opinion pieces. That's why a lot of these outlets are doing so badly. Is Americans want good information. And because Americans could say, hey, look, give me the facts, tell me where people are, and I'll make my own decision. Don't tell me what the answer is. And don't lie to me about what somebody's saying. I mean, I think they're tired of it. That's why you have places like Fox News and other places that are doing really well and other outlets that are basically falling apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually exactly why I started this podcast a little bit over a year ago. I get to interact with lots of elected officials like yourself, and there's always such eloquent, deep answers where you can actually get substantive. But if you turn on the television, you get these 15-second snippets that's cut in any which way, and it's impossible to really understand an issue. And I feel like people in the public really just want to hear a little bit more. Look, the last thing I want to ask you about is a little bit out of the box. I was thinking about it this morning when I was preparing for the podcast. You spent 10 years as a CEO of Columbia HCA healthcare executive, running hospitals, etc., all over the country. Luigi Mangioni, in the beginning of December, like allegedly shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Midtown Manhattan early morning. I was actually in New York City that morning, flying out. Just the breadth of a crime like that in broad daylight in the middle of New York City shook the world, and the way he was executed, it seemed obvious at that moment that the world would condemn him, Luigi. Everybody would kind of turn against this killer. But just like we saw after October 7th, sort of everything's upside down in the world these days. And there's been a big push, at least in social media and the sort of younger generation, trying to almost defend or excuse Mangione because of the problems that he sees in the healthcare industry and the insurance industry in particular. With your background in healthcare, what's your reaction to what happened there?
Well, first off, my heart goes out to Brian's family. You can't imagine this would happen in the United States of America. And we all have to understand that, people are trying to do the best job they can. And you have a choice as an American, whether it's you don't have to buy that product or service, or whether you don't have to vote for that candidate. We ought to say, let's exercise our individual rights, but we should have no violence. Um, so, but there's a lot of people that, it seems like there's groups that, believe in violence now as a way to get the change they want. And, you just have to condemn it and hold these people accountable for bad acts.
Yeah, in the Jewish community, like when we talk about anti-Semitism, we talk often about how it's a canary in the coal mine, where if you see anti-Semitism, it's usually representative of other issues and ills in the society. And this is such a perfect example where you've seen such an explosion of anti-Semitism and excusing of terrorism, etc., on our streets publicly by elected officials, primarily now in the last couple of years on the left, not even on the far left, just seeing them everywhere. And now, just months later, murder, broad daylight, New York City, and those same people, many of those same people, are marching, excusing the murder with
Right.
pictures of this murderer Luigi. And now the discussion has turned to he's facing federal charges and state charges in New York, and he's actually facing the federal death penalty. Do you think, from what you know, he deserves the death penalty for his actions?
Well, if you look at what's happened on television, he's not been convicted yet, but it sure looks like he was just absolutely in cold blood, and he just had a vendetta against him. So at least that's what you read. So if that's what happened, that's clearly justified. But violence is never justified. If somebody is of course, threatening harm to you or your family, then you've got to be able to defend yourself. But violence should never be tolerated. And we got to figure out how to bring people together and have a legitimate conversation about how do we, if we don't, if somebody doesn't like the way the healthcare system is being delivered, then get in the middle of it and change it. That's the right way of doing it.
And I'm careful on how I craft the question because I don't want to give this guy Luigi what he asked for, which is for people to talk about issues in the healthcare system with insurance and such. I'm sure there's lots to talk about there, but it's not going to be framed in connection with this monster's actions. But listen, before we wrap, I can't have you on the air without doing what I always do when I see you, which is thanking you for all your work that you do for the state of Florida, particularly for the Jewish community and the state of Israel. You've done a lot for the hostages and survivors of October 7th. And I guess but the last question I'll ask is: we're seeing now every week more hostages being released that Israel's paying an absurdly high price for, which may be a risk. Only time will tell if it was a risk worth taking or not. But you see the love of life that the people of Israel have and the Jewish people have just seeing these hostages return home. How did you react to seeing? How are you reacting to seeing all these videos of hostages coming back?
Well, your heart goes out to what they've gone through, but you're happy for them and you're happy for their families. But you also know that we've lost a lot of people, and so your heart goes out to people that haven't come home and their families, and you wish that every Hamas fighter was dead. And unfortunately, they're not, and it bothers you when you see videos of Hamas fighters out there in the public again, because if you don't destroy them, they're going to come back and do the exact same thing. You know, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years from now. So you have to destroy them. So The way I think about this is we've got to support Israel. We've got to completely condemn Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and Iran. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I hope everybody stands with Israel. Hope everybody stands with, you know, Jews in this country and around the world. And I hope everybody stands against any anti-Semitism.
Thank you so much, Senator Rick Scott. Thank you so much for lending us your time here and joining us on Standpoint. Everyone else, we'll see you next week.